You're listening to Off Color, a podcast where we talk about race, identity, politics, parenthood, motherhood, and other uncomfortable things. I'm your host, Rebecca Henderson, aka the Tan Tigress.
And I'm your producer, Janice Matsko, aka Janice of European descent.
What? Janice, it is good to see you here for another episode of Off Color Live. Woo! So we're streaming here from Facebook and from the Tan Tigress YouTube page if you're interested. We are going to be chopping it up this evening. If you don't have a drink and you happen to be on the internet right now might be the time to go get yourself one, okay? This is a drinking zone. Good. I see one of our guests just ran off to grab a drinky poo. And we just want to let you guys know we're going to be chopping it up about a variety of things. This is live, right, Janice? Live.
It's always wild when we're live.
As you know, I should not be live due to you know what, and we can't edit it. So I hope you are ready to, I don't even know, girl. What are we talking about today? Just kidding. I know. It is Monday, September something.
21st.
September 21st, first day of spring or something, summer. Does it matter since the pandemic? I mean, let's be real. Like our days, times, none of that stuff makes any difference to me at this point. But we wanted to make sure that we were still giving you guys the quality content you've been searching for. Right, Janice?
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's good. She's good. All right. So, something that Janice and I do not see eye to eye on and never have is the American pastime of sports ball. Okay. AKA sports, whatever people call it. Janice is what I would consider a hardcore Broncos fan. Yeah, for real, like hardcore. Okay? And so that this is something we've kind of talked about. I was boycotting the NFL. Janice was not boycotting the NFL, and we're still friends. So that said, we are going to bring on, we have two incredible guests this evening for your pleasure. And one is like a real star, you guys.
They're both stars. Come on.
They're both stars. But so, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring on the Vikings wide receiver person, Bisi Johnson.
Let's see here. We're going this way.
So glad to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much for being here, young man. I know you're young. I know that you know about sports ball, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and opinions on the current state of the NFL and racial justice. So we're really looking forward to that, okay?
Yeah.
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
All right. And our next guest, you may know him from a variety of sports publications and news outlets. Ladies and gentlemen, I present the great, the fantastic, the verbose, Justin Adams.
Thank you. I love verbose, by the way. That's a nice word. I'm going to put that somewhere. Every time I'm on TV, I'm going to make sure they highlight it verbose before they go from there.
I like it.
He's verbose. So thank you so much for being here. Justin, you are a sports journalist based here in Denver, Colorado. That's correct.
Yep.
And thank you so much for joining us. And so we're going to start jumping into this conversation right now. Is everybody ready to get uncomfortable? I forgot to tell you, that's the other thing. We make people really uncomfortable on this show.
I'm ready to get uncomfortable with my Bronco cup. You see right here?
Yeah.
Really uncomfortable.
I mean, you probably won't be uncomfortable, but maybe people who are watching might be uncomfortable, but that's not our problem. You know what I mean? So the first thing I'm going to bring up is already going to make everybody feel weird. So here it comes, okay? In October of 2016, the late, great Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg made a statement. I don't know if any of you recall or remember that statement. Anybody? No?
No.
Okay. She said of Colin Kaepernick's protest, and I'm not trying to like shame Ruth Bader Ginsburg in her death, okay? Like, I'm sad she's dead. I'm a woman, all that stuff. But on the Kaepernick protest, she said I think it's dumb and disrespectful. And I don't know if people were paying attention to that at the time, but like, do you recall that at all?
No.
I don't know who wants to go first. BC, I'll let you go
Yeah, I'll
first.
start. I don't recall it at all. I wasn't maybe too into politics back then, you know,
I
wasn't
mean, you were in like 10th grade or something.
yeah, it probably
I'll
wasn't
give you a pass. I don't even think you could vote. But anyway.
so probably wasn't as educated as I could be. But I mean, it's just sucks to see because I don't think that's the point of it at all is to be disrespectful, I guess, towards a lot of the things that people think is disrespectful too. But you know, people have their opinions. You can't please everybody.
Well, no, and she apologized like
Yeah,
almost immediately,
yeah,
unlike the NFL. But it was definitely something that stood out to me as someone who does follow politics and who is I'm like a raging liberal, blah blah blah, like all that. But like it really, I remember being upset about it, and then also at the same time feeling like she is a great Supreme Court justice. She is amazing. And she was born in the United States of America, where we have a serious ideological problem
mhm,
around this myth or ideal that like white is better than everything else. Right.
yeah,
So I didn't like give her necessarily a pass, but it's been on my mind, obviously, with her passing. Some people I saw were posting and talking about that. And so this episode, we were planning on sports anyway, but it seemed like the perfect time to talk about Kaepernick and sort of that whole setting it off from Kaepernick to what we saw like 2 weeks ago, right? Like on the field. So that's all I know about sports. Uh,
Yeah. So
I'm
I'm
I'm glad we're not going to go over like a 9 route or go over a 7 route or trips right or anything like that, BC.
you
So we
lost,
should be
you
fine.
lost from there.
If I may say one thing though, I think that we have to look and understand that this was the heartbeat of a section of several Americans, that comment. And even though there has been forgiveness and people have been awakened, at that time, that was literally the mindset and the heartbeat of people who didn't understand the plight of what was happening with African Americans. And so you could be led astray when you don't understand what's fully going on. And so
Mhm.
when that comment was made, that's something I could go forth where it's like, oh, this is the initial feeling that I have towards a situation, but you don't understand what's all going on. And so the question of why is generally not asked of why is somebody doing what they're doing. And so because we don't ask that question and we have to immediately go to social media or we're being trained to initially react without really sitting and thinking, you get responses like that.
Mm.
That was good.
I do not disagree with you. And I think that then being called on it again, so for me, part of what we do at Off Color is this idea of like having these conversations around race and identity. And she did the proper response for me where she was like, you know what, that was like a comment, I shouldn't have said it, and now I've reflected on it, and that's what we need to do. So if for anyone out here who's acting like I'm trying to drag RBG just after she recently passed, that's not what I'm trying to do, but I did feel like it was something kind of worth talking about. And oh, I'm sorry, I'm like looking, I shouldn't look at the comments, you guys, but you should, Janice, you should, and you can put them up there as well. All right, next. Sorry,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
so I met BC several years ago when he was still playing for CSU, and I know his mom and his wonderful Auntie Kay.
Uh,
So when we started talking about this subject, I immediately thought of reaching out to BC to have him on, and uh, BC, you actually knelt for your first game of this season,
yeah,
and I believe there were 6 players total on the team that ended up kneeling or something like that.
5 or 6, something like
5
that.
or 6.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask you about that experience and kind of why you decided to do that, and if there was any kind of response from the people around you, from your friends and family. What was their response? You know, was there any kind of backlash from the team or the owners or anything like that?
Yeah, so I mean, this year it's been actually a really crazy year, really emotional year for I think a lot of African Americans, a lot of minorities. I'm actually living in Minnesota right now, where George Floyd was killed. Black lives have been a very hot topic for the last 6 months, which they've always been a hot topic, and they should have always been a hot topic, but recently it's become something very prevalent, and especially in sports. And just playing for the Minnesota Vikings and stuff like that. I think it was about 2-3 weeks ago, we had a like player run meeting talking about what was our plan in order to bring awareness to these types of topics. And this was actually a few days after James Blake passed, or not passed, was shot in Wisconsin. Where was he shot? I don't remember.
Kenosha?
Yeah, Kenosha, I think. Yeah,
There's too many to keep track.
I mean,
yeah, it's sad. They're really
honestly, that sorry, but really, I can't even.
Yeah. So, just having those conversations with the team about what we were going to do, we ended up deciding we were going to do a video after one of our scrimmages on the field, and there was going to be a few guys who spoke up on the topic. They did an incredible job, um, and we were all standing there behind them in full support. And then it got closer to the season, and I'm thinking in my head, like, what are we gonna do? Blah blah blah, all this. And then few it was probably a week before our first game, we kind of had another player run discussion about what we were going to do. There was going to be a demonstration for George Floyd where his family would come out and see all of us, and we decided that it was best for us, instead of, because the national anthem wasn't going to be played there, it was just going to be us standing watching a video. So we decided that it was going to be best for us to link arms, stand in the end zone, and just show solidarity and support for the family. So that was hands down like what we were going to do for that. And then the national anthem, I mean, it's hard to get everybody to agree on one thing. Like my father and I have talked about it multiple times. You have siblings who are raised the same way, but they can't agree on one thing. You can't get a whole 53-man roster to agree all to kneel. That's it's not realistic. So we had a few guys raise their hands who were going to kneel. There was definitely not all those hands that went up when we talked about it before. All didn't take a knee when the game happened. But that's just how it goes. I'm not mad at anybody for not taking a knee. But at the end of the day, now to get to your question, kind of my reason for taking a knee was because I felt like it was right. It's in my heart, and that's how I felt personally, because I want to bring awareness. I want to be part of the movement. I want to be somebody who can use my platform to 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 help African Americans, minorities who have no voice, because I do have a voice. I may not see injustice in my everyday life all the time. I hear about it way too often, but I don't see it as much. But it's really, I think, my job to bring awareness to stuff like that.
Mm. Well, seems like the kids are doing all right, I guess. The young ones are coming up okay, based on that. And
Yeah.
also, you seem good. You got your little brain in there. I like it. You're like breaking a little stereotype for me. I thought you were gonna be a little bit, but it turned out good. I like
Yeah.
that. Okay. So I wanted to ask you though, as a person who grew up in Colorado Springs, right?
No, I grew up in Lakewood, Colorado. In Colorado.
Just kidding. I don't know anything. As a Black person,
Yeah.
Black mixed race person, I don't know if you identify as mixed, but I could tell. And so that's the tan tigress. Okay. So I just was wondering a little bit just about your experience growing up here. And how that kind of impacted you. And sorry, but Justin, did you also grow up in Colorado?
Yeah, I grew up in Montbello area, so northeast Denver.
Okay.
So our area was called Mont Ghetto, to say the least.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up from, and it's to the point where, unfortunately, I don't say I'm generally from Montbello. Sometimes I just say I'm from northeast Denver, and
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
there's a lot of different coding that goes along with that, depending on what crowd you're in.
Yeah.
Mm, okay. So I wondered because you were growing up here, did you feel like you wanted to play football? You had to play it, you liked it? Like tell me that cuz I feel like that's like my vision of any black kid in Colorado, right? Cuz you guys got the what's his name? You got a famous one too, a basketball player, Chauncey
Yeah,
Billups
Santi, yeah.
and some other
Mhm.
people that I don't know their names. And so like those I feel like the people that I see coming out of Denver sports wise are black. Um can you speak on that a little bit?
Um, I mean, yeah, I never felt like I had to play sports.
Mm,
That was never a thing. Um, Honestly, in my culture, so my dad's Nigerian, so
mm,
Nigerian culture, I mean, they have a huge emphasis on going to school, getting your education, basically being a doctor, a lawyer, like some high profile um, kind of job like that. So that's something my dad didn't push as much, but in Nigerian culture, that's a very big thing. So even playing sports isn't totally looked on as good as some of those things. But nonetheless, growing up, I had a love for the game, um, and that's really what propelled me to continue playing through college and into the NFL. Um, I did not grow up in Northeast Denver, so I did not see as many injustices as maybe Justin has seen.
Mhm.
I grew up in the suburbs, in some of the whitest parts of Colorado. Um, I would say honestly, in the last 5, 6 years, I've become a lot blacker than I ever was when I was coming out of high school.
mm,
In growing up, yeah, I grow up around a lot of white kids. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But you really, as you grow up, you become a black man in America. I'm not just BC. I'm seen as a black man in America. If nobody knows me, I'm not a football player anymore. Um, and I think I really started to notice it when I went to Colorado State, which even Colorado State, there aren't that many black people up there. It's very white, but I'm also in a demographic of 70, 80% of black people are because I'm an athlete. So I'm on the football team. Um, you know, and as much as I was on the football team, I also had like people be racist towards me because maybe they didn't know I was a football player. I'm not trying to say I should receive privilege, but some people look at you differently when they know you're a football player. But then I'm figuring out, oh, I'm not just a football player anymore. I'm getting beer thrown on me because people think I stole a PS4, like stuff like that. Like my friends are getting pulled over because they're driving while black. Like that stuff I never heard when I was growing up. Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, in recent years, I've become blacker than I ever was before, and it's something I'm very proud of, and I'm learning as I go, understanding as I go.
I love that. Justin, did you play sports in school in your youth? You look young, but I know you old, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, don't let the beard fool you. I'm 34, by the way. So yeah, I played high school ball at Montbello High School, and then I went to the University of Colorado, the University of Colorado, by the way, and played 3 years. Played 3 years of college ball up there for the Buffs, so enjoyed my time there. But no, I saw actually for both sides because I was a walk on, so I saw, you go there as a freshman at the University of Colorado, and you're on campus and you see there's a lot of white people there, but you don't notice it because in a locker room,
Mhm.
there's such a collision of so many different cultures and races and faces and ethnic groups there that you don't really notice it, right? And so it's just normal. You're trying to become part of the team, do the best you can there. But what's upsetting is when I stopped playing. So I played my first 3 years. I was there for 5 years on campus, And then my last 2 years, I just stopped playing. I decided to pursue my degree in broadcast journalism. Turned out pretty well. And you get the questions of, "Hey, do you play on a football team?" And when you're playing ball, you're like, "Yeah, of course I do." "Hey," and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, great stuff." And you want to talk about it. But
Yeah.
then once you're not playing, and they ask you, uh, many white students, unfortunately, ask you the same question: "Do you play football?" Or your worth is being defined by your athleticism, or the reason why you're on campus is defined because of your athletic feats and not because of your brain. That's an issue, and that's a great issue. I remember my freshman year, even some black students where they thought that I was on scholarship, and again, the only reason why I was there was because I could play ball. And I was like, no, man, I walked onto the team. And so I'm not saying there's a double standard, but there's always that kind of that sense that you don't belong because of who you are as a person. You only belong because of you and plus you being an athlete, not just you as an intellect. It's always you plus something else for you to be there. So that's some of the things that definitely faces at just in general I see you.
Hmm. Well, lucky that you two didn't have your daddy telling you you were big for nothing because you couldn't play sports. Exhibit A. Me and my sister, not good at sports. Okay. So thank you for that commentary, Justin. I guess I'm wondering from your point of view as a journalist, like covering sports and seeing what it looked like from like 2016 to now. When Kaepernick first started his protest. Can we talk about Kaepernick? Is that legal? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's funny that even us having to ask that question shows the biggest issue that I think I have in general. It is a story, he is a person, and he stood up for something as well. And anybody who is a human being and stands up for something deserves to be talked about. And it shouldn't be coded by, "Ooh, Kaepernick, shh, you got to quiet that down." Similar to when I was growing up, if you said that you're a black man or black and you're proud, you kind of had to say that on the low. For
Mm.
what reason, I don't know, right? And so that shouldn't be an issue that we have to be able to talk about it. And I think what really is a deal is a lot of people are afraid of losing jobs and opportunity, just point blank, right? And so if you don't own, you're afraid of losing your job, afraid of losing your sponsors, afraid of losing opportunity from that point. Weirdly enough, during the time I was actually working in a ministry, I was working at a place called Pro Athletes Outreach and doing some journalism work there as well. But I saw it from that perspective. And again, PAO, Pro Athletes Outreach, I know Bisi, you know about this. They do a lot of fantastic things. But again, it goes back to kind of the beginning of our conversation, how you could be so misguided because you don't understand everything that goes along with it. And so I brought it up immediately. Hey guys, this is an issue that we need to talk about. And it wasn't embraced initially. And that's the biggest difference between today or between 2016 and today is that it wasn't embraced. People did ask why and then dive into what was going on. We just reacted in general by initial feelings and then allowed those initial feelings to be founded by what we saw on TV from coverage on NBC, MSNBC, Fox News, whatever it may be, right? And so rather than us critically thinking for ourselves, we allowed others to think for us. And that's the reason why it took 4 years until you get to the point where we are now, to where people can actually have some semblance and some resemblance to actually really talk about these issues.
Well, and I would argue that even most of that transition has happened in the last year, in the last 6 months. I mean, I'm curious, uh, for you, BC, what how much and what have you seen change just in the 2 years that you've been in the NFL, like, when you started versus your first
Yeah,
game
I
this
mean,
season?
if I would have taken a knee last year, I might have been out of my job this year. Um, like you said, in the last 6 months, a lot has changed. I, I'm not, I don't mean to phrase this in a weird way, but I don't know how else to phrase it. It's become kind of cool to support the movement. The NFL is like, oh, we messed up. We should have supported Kaepernick 4 years ago, but now we do. Um, and that's fine. I mean, we talked about it before.
Do
People.
they? Is he playing on a team?
I mean, yeah, why he would be a sellout, I feel like, if he played on a team, you know?
But
I
didn't he wanna play? Am I confused? Do I not know about sports ball?
yeah, he on some of his social media, he talks about it's been this many days since I played in a football game, all that,
Mhm.
but I don't think that's really the goal is to play.
Mm.
I don't know, Justin, what's your opinion on that? I
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm not in the locker room, so I would defer to you on that one.
yeah,
The one thing I will say is, and Bisa, you know this, it's tough to leave any profession, let alone football, to leave that for 4 years and come back. I mean,
Mm.
there's so many teams that need quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong.
absolutely.
That could even use time to say, "Hey, we'll work with you, get you up to speed." Of course, yeah, the Broncos need one because Drew Lock is like a twig right now. But I mean, it's difficult to go from being out of a sport or being out of a profession for 4 years and going back in. We're not making excuses as to why he's not playing. We're not making excuses that say that he cannot play right now. He cannot put on a uniform and be on the field and play well as well. But just from that standpoint alone, to be able to learn a playbook and different things like that, that takes time. It takes reps. And right now, he hasn't gotten any for 4 years.
Fine, this is like
It
about
looks
sports, real sports, like him like playing. I can't. I don't care about that. I'm like, that's my mixed race brother doing his thing. I love Kaepernick, and I wanted to ask before we get all crazy, but like I for real, just so you know, okay, sports people, when my husband and I got married in Jamaica right before the Super Bowl, it was 2014. I said in my wedding vows that I would be a Broncos fan until death do us part. Like that is literally in my wedding vows, okay? And so, but then after everything popped off, we start boycotting the NFL for real. Like we just stopped watching it and we judge people who watched it, Janice, and like we talked bad about people right to their face, you know? And no one else in my family was doing that. It was just like me and my husband, you know. But I feel like I guess I kind of wondered what I've never talked to like an NFL player like candidly before. Like how did that make y'all feel? What people were like, we're gonna boycott the NFL. P.S. My daddy was like, that makes no sense because then BC Johnson won't have a job and so on and so forth.
I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, I get it, but sports is all about entertainment and entertaining people, and everybody wants to separate sports and politics and sports and this and that, and I'm like, I mean, they go hand in hand, but if it's your priority to watch sports, then you'll watch sports. After Kaepernick kneeling and then them basically blackballing him from the league, I continue to watch sports. And if I had to go back, I don't know if I would change it. I was young when all this stuff happened. I guess I'm still young if it's your opinion, but
You're just a little baby, it's so cute.
but but like you say, you didn't watch sports. So if they let Kaepernick start playing tomorrow, would you start watching sports? Like
I
I
mean,
don't know.
if they had at the time, yes, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But now I'm in the same place where I am with a lot of things where I don't want crumbs anymore. I want the whole pie, you
yeah,
know? And
I,
so like I'm not that's why I to lead into this question that we're also getting from our audience, there's a couple things that came up. One is there like a small change? Janae Burris asked this question. She's a comedian, by the way, and she's hilarious. So shouts out to Janae. You can see her on a variety of our other episodes, and she's fine. Okay, now, but what is there? Is there like a small change that team owners can make today? And I'm coming to that question from a place of like what can people do like right now? Like what would make a difference to you? What would make you feel like you're working for a great organization, I guess is sort of my take on that.
yeah. So our owners personally have been focusing on allocating money to whether it's nonprofits, things like that. So they actually gave. We have a coalition of about 5 or 6 veterans on our team who are able to allocate the money wherever they would like. So personally, if I was like, hey, I want to give it to minority schools in the community and stuff like that. Like I can go to the coalition, I can talk to management, and they'll give them a lot of amount of money. And our budget is, I mean, I think it's $500,000 or something. Like, so they're obviously showing their support for us,
Hmm.
and that's good. That's a step in the right direction. Can we figure it all out tomorrow? No, we can't. There's no shot. Um, but I feel like that's a change, like I said, in the right direction, and that's something they're. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. I mean, I don't know. They're starting to do what's right. But it's so hard to get out of like old ways and things like that, because there's obviously primarily our whole front office upstairs, all that stuff. Like it's a lot of white people when you have 70% of your players are African American. It just doesn't make sense. You know, um, so everybody's. I don't know where I'm going with it, but
I know where you're going with it. You're
yeah.
talking about high level representation at every like level
Mhm.
in the organization, right? It's like it's the same thing that we want to see. Look, you're like, I don't know if that's what I meant, but I'm like, but it's the same thing we want to see in our government representation, right? Or in our
Mhm.
school boards and our teachers. Like, for example, in Denver, the school is like it's majority black and brown, and yet the administration, the teachers are not reflective of that population at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yep.
And there's no way that these minorities and African Americans aren't putting in the work. Like, we have very educated African Americans in this country who just aren't getting the same opportunities as other people. Is it because and it's because they don't know the right people, because they're not white, because like it stems from like people aren't given equal opportunity for a job. It's just not. I mean, the NFL has been pinned as the good boys league forever, because it's the good, it's whoever knows who. And right now, it's a lot of white coaches who give their kids, their friends, their whatever jobs. It's not an equal opportunity thing. So I mean,
That's
it's a
why we need you to be
weird,
owning the Vikings at some point. Is that a thing? You do
but
that? Are you good at sports? I've never seen you play.
yeah, I'm pretty good at sports.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
And I know I don't want to run out of my time for you, but I did want to ask that question that from Venetia Hall. She's a local Denverite, and she wanted to know: do you agree with the CHSAAs? I have no idea what that even stands for, by the
Oh,
way.
CHASA. Let me help you. Yeah, so that's CHASA. So Colorado High School Association, whatever the other A is for. But
Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so I'll address that. Olavisa will let you do your thing too, but uh, allow them to have sports. Here's the reality. So there are a lot of kids who are asking and pretty much begging to have their kids, especially going into their senior year, to play football. And the main reason is because is a lot of parents and a lot of kids too want to have the opportunity to go to college, to have a chance to have a full ride education for playing ball, whether it's D1, D2, NAIA, it doesn't matter. And all those are different, different divisions of college football. So that's the main reason why. And you want to bring back some sense of normalcy, especially when you have like Utah, Alabama, and other different states that are playing football despite COVID going on right now. So that's the main reason why it's happening. The main reason is, yeah, you want to have your senior season, but a lot of parents are hoping and praying and have their fingers crossed that their kid is good enough to get picked up by a college so that they don't have to pay that ridiculous fee for college.
Think of all the things that could be solved if we didn't have to pay insane amounts of money for our college educations. Hmm.
Right. Right.
Think of the problems.
That's a
But
whole
there's
topic.
Yeah, I mean, Bisi, you know this too. It's a huge industry for kids in high school chasing that dream to get to, college or even to the NFL. Like, there's so many different specialized trainers and so many
Yeah.
people say, "I'll get your tape." So, long and short of it, you have people who, Rebecca, will take your college or your high school tape, will make cuts of it, edits of it, and send it to different colleges so that you could be selected for a scholarship. Uh, and that's a huge industry just
Remember
in
when the
general.
white people did it and they pretended and they made the fake videos,
Mhm.
the scandal with the when the kids were getting in? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
The lady
yeah.
full house and they put their
Yeah, no,
sorry.
but it happens. It is a huge industry. BC, I don't know if you had to do that yourself to get up to
Yeah,
CSU
I
or
mean,
be a part of that.
so I fell into that trap a little because I call it a trap. I fell into that trap a little my junior year, going into my senior year, I think.
Yep.
Paid a person to make some cut ups of my tape and make this whole profile, but really at the end of the day, like, if you can play ball, like, somebody's gonna see you. You're gonna get the opportunity to play at the next level, whether that's for a scholarship after your first, second, third year while you're in college, or if that's a scholarship, a 4-year full ride scholarship right off the bat. Somebody will figure it out. You can go JUCO. There's so many different routes. There's no one way to get there. That's what I was telling this kid the other day. But I mean, going back on the whole Chassa thing, allowing them to play this year, like you said, Justin, like it's tough. Like you got other states playing, but you're gonna hold Colorado from playing. Like that just seems very. It's not fair in a sense. But if like Chassa and everything, if they can figure out like regulations and stuff like that that go along the guidelines with COVID, then by all means, those kids should be able to play because there are kids who can be losing out on a lot of money. Like a full ride scholarship is worth a lot of money these days.
How much money is it worth if you're dead? That's my question.
I mean,
So
yeah, it's a tough line to walk, but they're also healthy young kids. So
don't get me started. Listen, I
yeah,
would
I
I
don't
would
want to
I
try to.
wouldn't let anybody do anything if it were up to me. Okay,
Well,
that's a real thing.
I
However, I do think some things can be done if people are being like potted and they're testing them and they're doing things like what are the
yeah,
COVID protocols, if I may ask, for the NFL?
yeah, well, that's the thing. With the NFL, we have been tested every day for the last probably 40 days, over a month for sure, like a month and a half. So we have it figured out, I feel like, and we wear tracers or like tracker things that talk about like if you're within 6 feet of a person for more than 10 minutes, then that's considered close contact. So then if that person tests positive and you're in close contact, then you have to get tested 3 times in order to come back onto the field. So like our regulations are pretty solid. Whether they can do that in high school, like I doubt it.
Of course they can, because America's a mess. Now, listen,
Yeah,
that's the problem. I'm sorry, but the fact that the NFL is able to do that and we can't test our kids, I can't even send my kid back to school now.
I
No,
know.
they're using them as guinea pigs, basically. Like it's like the ultimate science experiment to say, like, okay, if this person ends up getting COVID, and then we have all this data about how close these people were together, and we're testing them to know when it actually shows up and when they start showing symptoms or when they test positive. It's just one big science experiment. Like, yes, it's garbage that we can't also be testing the rest of the citizens, but like it is also a huge amount of information that I sincerely hope will ultimately lead to a better understanding of this virus.
Yeah.
I feel like as long as money is the option, the main goal, we're not gonna see the things we need to be seeing out of
Mm.
the experiment. I just don't think that's gonna, you know what I mean? Like if it's not profitable,
Here.
nobody cares.
You're
However, I'm
yeah.
glad to hear that. That makes me feel better in my heart because now I feel like you're my son, you know? And I'm like, oh, this young man, I hope he's safe and taking care of himself and doing the right thing, you know?
Yeah, I'm doing the right thing.
So that's good. That's good to hear that. I'm so totally serious about that. Well, at least there's that. That's all I can say on that, I guess, around you being reasonably safe during COVID. But we had another question from Janae again, but she wanted to talk about HBCUs. And she had said on here, I just was a little bit curious. You know, she has a 17-year-old nephew. He's a lineman. That's a position, I think. And he's currently being recruited. Do you have any HBCU recommendations? Or she wishes he would. I mean, he's going to go to the best. Like, is that a good thing? I don't know anything about sports and HBCUs at all.
Justin, do you have any?
I would say this: number one, to be recruited and to be selected for your talent and your skills is a blessing, number one. So never forget that. No matter if you're what division of football you're playing in, to be looked at is important. I would say when you look at HBCUs, the only thing that's normally thrown out, the difference between an HBCU and a D1, especially a major D1, is facilities. I mean, that's just the
Mm.
biggest part of it, and it's a whole lot of money that like a CU, for example, will have, or a CSU will have, other than like a Jackson State where Deion Sanders just was hired as the head coach today, or a Howard University, for example. But at the same time, if you're going to spend 4 to 5 years of your life somewhere, make sure that they're doing it for a place that will benefit you as an individual. And I know you don't want to sound narcissistic by saying that, but you want to be in a place that puts you in the best position for you to be able to grow as a player, grow as a man, and just grow in general as an intellect. All three of those things are the most important. So, for sure, if you could play ball, if you have those skills, they will allow you different opportunities that other people won't have. So you got to make sure that you use that, but use it very wisely. Take your time, pick the best place, because what a lot of coaches will do nowadays is they will actually give you or offer you a scholarship, and they'll offer like 300 kids scholarships around the country when there's only like 25 spots. So
Yes.
Mm.
you may think you have one of those spots, and then here comes National Signing Day, and you find yourself on the way out because they pick somebody else who's just a little better than you. So make sure that you pick a place that is 100% for you, that they really appreciate you as a person, and they're really going to stick by you.
This is the most sporting off color that has ever occurred. Just so you know, I'm like, there's like legit advice in this that people would not expect to come out of anything that I'm working on. I want to stop and thank you for that. And you know what, you guys, we're at six. A few more minutes, I think, and
A
then
few more minutes. I mean, we've talked a lot about, the world of football, but to get more broadly into sports ball and also just like, Justin, I was curious if you've noticed, is there one sport in particular that you've seen the greatest shift in the last years, 6 months? Like maybe something that kind of surprised you?
Hockey. Not even. I don't think twice about it. It's hockey. Hockey is a predominantly white sport. They actually came out and say we skate for black people or something like that. Not even like a Black Lives Matter
Skate for
deal,
Black
right?
Lives or
Yeah,
something?
we skate for Black Lives, right?
Wow.
And they after the NBA within the playoffs, after they stopped a couple of days, the NHL followed suit, and that is something that you would never see in the NHL for them to be able to stop their sport in the postseason while they're in the bubble as well, and look and say, "Hey, we got to talk
Wow.
about these issues and different things like that." And so, what that does is only not only this is that it not only brings it up in America, but it also brings it up in Canada as well. So now you're hitting two different countries. You're bringing that in there because it's easy to say baseball and different things like that. Baseball has a history with Jackie Robinson and other different things, but hockey does not. Hockey does not have that lineage in general of talking about issues specifically to black people, black and brown people. So, yeah, hockey would definitely be the number one. And if I may add too, the people who are actually on top of the conversation is the WNBA. The WNBA is amazing at all the different
hello,
things that they do, and
women,
they don't get
we're
the
number
credit.
one.
They do not get the credit. I get it. BC, I love it with the NFL, NBA,
Yeah.
and all that. That's cool. But when you look at what's going on, tennis too doing well. Naomi Osaka. After every game, she put on a mask that had different names of different black people who were killed. But you got to look at the WNBA, and it's really a study of what they are doing. It is very, it's just impressive. And so, the people who've grown the most, NHL, the people who are holding it down the most, WNBA, and definitely Naomi Osaka within tennis.
Mm.
The one that really knocked me over was NASCAR coming out against, uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
They were like first.
yeah. I was like,
yeah.
wild.
Didn't they do it first? They got rid of the flat. They did something, and we were all like, "What's going on?" Like, sorry, that's my impression of NASCAR.
I like that impression, by the way. The only reason why I would put NHL over NASCAR. And NASCAR, don't get me wrong, they were the first sport actually to come out and have live events, by the way. So they had they had the stage all to themselves while there were no sports during the pandemic.
Mm.
Oh, the spotlight was on them, so it seemed like it's bigger than everything else. Taking away the Confederate flag and not having that fly over, extremely important. I'm just being honest with you on a cultural deal. When you look at the NHL, you are not thinking of some chocolate people. Let's just call it what it is. But what they are doing, okay, and what they have done is huge. NASCAR, I love it what they did, but the NHL definitely surprised me the most.
That's fascinating. Okay, good, good. I like that. Now, the other sport I was wondering about is what's the one with the orange ball where you bounce it?
Basketball.
Okay, so basketball, because I mean, they didn't they do something too?
They've done a lot.
They've done a lot.
Yeah, they actually stopped play for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, something like
Mhm.
that. The 2 LA teams, so it was the LA Clippers and the LA Lakers, were thinking about just not playing the rest of the season. Like, they weren't gonna finish out to the championship, which would have been a huge statement by them. And really, the biggest thing I saw from this was all the people that were pissed about, "We just wanna watch sports, we just want this, we just want that." I had friends of friends, like, people I called my friends, like, "Yo, like, we just wanna watch sports, it's not about all this," and that was super upsetting. Um, I just couldn't believe it because, we have guys taking a stand for Black lives, for minorities, people who are killed by police officers every day, and they're trying to put a stop to this or bring awareness to it at least. And now you're going to get upset because, oh, you just want to get your mind off the fact that all these black people are dying. Let me just go put it into sports. Oh, I'm mad because sports isn't happening because of this. Like it's upsetting. It's upsetting to see. It was upsetting for me. Um, but that's just how people will react to things like this. People who don't get it, primarily white people, just because they actually just don't have an understanding. And they're not wrong for it, but that's the point of these protests, is to bring awareness to people so they can help understand.
I'm like, I will tell them they're wrong for it every day of the
100%.
week. And
Hey, Rebecca, can I ask one question? Just I'm curious. Here's the journalist in me. BC, before, like while that was all going on, there were some reports and some people saying guys like Russell Wilson would say that if there was a game that week, that there possibly could have been protests from the NFL. How close was it to that actually happening? You being in a locker room where guys actually were like, "I'm not playing this week."
Yeah, so after the James Blake incident happened, there were a few teams that came out and didn't practice. I think Detroit was the first one to do it. We had a conversation as a team, and I I don't know, like, I think if there was gonna be a game that week, I think we would have had it, in all honesty. As sad as it is, whatever. But also we talked about it as a team, and for us just not to practice because we're jumping on the bandwagon of, oh, like, this will show we're in solidarity, like, that wasn't the point of it. We wanted to have a better message and stuff like that. So that's why we waited 3 or 4 days to have a public thing where four of guys on our coalition spoke up about the issues that have happened in our city and in all of America. And that was in our best interest, I think, because just sitting out because everybody's doing it, like, there should be some substance behind why you do something. It shouldn't just be because everybody else is doing it.
Hmm,
That's good. I'm good. That's
okay, I'm like,
yeah.
what other questions are coming out of the old journalism bag?
No,
Um,
I didn't know
that
this
was
was
the
an
biggest one.
interview. I didn't know this was an interview.
I mean,
Well, yeah, well, I'll be honest. It was something that
I'm kidding.
yeah, no, but it was something that I looked at. I was thinking of. You hear a lot of people talk. Mainly, you hear people on sports talk radio, myself even, right?
Yeah.
But the difference is, and I've known this when I was in college playing ball too. There is a difference between somebody who's writing something in the newspaper, talking about you on radio, and you actually being in a locker room.
Yeah,
And many times you have no clue. They are so far off of what's actually being talked about or what's actually happening.
Yeah,
And we don't get that a lot. And so it's important that when we have the opportunity to find out what's actually going on and not what somebody has drawn up or saying just to get a couple of clicks on social media.
yeah.
Mm,
I 100% agree with that. But to answer your question, I think we would have played.
well,
Bisi, I'm curious. I know the NFL has those like messages that they're putting on the back of their helmets. I was curious which one that you selected, if you selected one.
Yeah, I put Elijah McClain's name on the back of my helmet. I felt, yeah, it was close to my heart. It's my home state and everything. And I mean, the stuff that happened to that kid, it's super sad because I, the sad part is I don't think he would have been in the question if the stuff that happened to George Floyd wouldn't have happened.
yeah.
Because I forget when it happened. Was it in
It was
September?
last year. It was a year
Yeah,
ago, and
it was, like, months and months ago, and now his name is just coming up. Like, it's super sad to see, and, um, that's why I put it on the back of my helmet.
I would like to thank you for that because this is something that in the local like activist community here in Aurora and Denver, um, we've been calling for this justice for a long time for Elijah McClain. And when people went to go speak at the city council,
Mhm.
the city council, they wore Blue Lives Matter shirts, knowing that activists were coming to speak on behalf of Elijah McClain and his family. And it was really like for me, that was a really hard one. And nobody, it barely made, you know what I mean? It didn't make news really. It was a, like one article, and now, then the story comes out this year. So I mean, it's such a heartbreaking story. All of them are heartbreaking stories, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful that it's getting the attention that it deserves, and it's making changes to the legislature because at least now we're gonna have like a temporary ban of using ketamine
Mhm.
on people. So there's that. I would prefer a full ban because they already know from the research it's not a thing they should be using. But anyway, so I wanted to say thank you. That was long, but that's how I get after I almost drank all my wine.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right, kids. I want to honor everyone's time, and it's almost 7, and so I wanted to see if there was any burning questions. Oh yeah, sorry. And then we had a comment that they also they arrested all of the protesters got arrested
Oh,
for the complaint. Yeah.
that's the six protesters, correct?
Yeah.
Here in Colorado, yeah,
6
that's
protesters plus Colorado Springs. I think 2 people got picked up down there for other things. And we're asking personally, this is not any reflection on our guests. This is the Off Color podcast. But I want the DA, Dave Young, to drop those charges. They're ludicrous. They're like ludicrous charges, ultimately. And so that's happening now. It's like, well, like it's this constant fight. And so it might be a knee this week, but it's going to be something else next week, and we're not going to be able to stop until we have what we're wanting, which isn't even wild, you guys. It's not even crazy. People are like, just stop killing us in the streets. Maybe like give us equal rights, treat us like people. Like it's nothing crazy. It's baffling to me that it's so hard at this point, that we're still here in 2020. That part feels hard to me. So someone cheer me up.
um BC, man, what y'all guys gonna do this week? I'm trying to cheer up, man. Who y'all got this week, man?
Good news. Give us some good news.
Yeah, I mean, we're 0-2 right now. It's not where we want to be at, but
Oh, I was like, that's great.
we got a new week. No, it's not great. It's not great. We got a new week against the Titans, so I'm excited for it. And it's home.
Yeah, please beat them for us.
Please, man. And also, in all honesty, man,
Need a little help.
bro, we are. I'll say we. Broncos are struggling. Hey, but quick side note, BC, man, stay healthy out there. I know week 2 was tough for a lot of guys. So please stay healthy, man. And hey, we'll be rooting you on, man. I'll be rooting you on as well. So do your thing, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you so
All right,
much.
listen, I typically boycott the NFL in general. However, oh, she has a jersey. I could watch a little bit sometime if you're playing, okay, BC.
Yeah.
I will watch you, but only because I support my brother in Minnesota. Okay,
Thank you. Yeah,
but
thank
not the whole organization.
I know, I know. Do your thing.
All right then. All right. Any final closing thoughts or things that we didn't ask or you wish we would have asked? We like to let people know that. Anything else you want to add?
I would just like to say thank you for having me on. Um, when I took a knee that first game, I mean, I took a knee the second game too, and I will continue to take a knee until we start seeing changes. But thank you so much for having me on. I personally have to continue to educate myself. I encourage all of you to educate yourself, and I know you are. Um, but these are issues that are not going anywhere anytime soon. The fight for equality is going to be a long, maybe never ending battle. But I encourage you guys to stay positive. It's I mean, it's tough to see, but I'm glad we can come together and have these conversations because tough conversations is what will encourage change. Um, and it's just exciting to do like this, honestly.
Thank you. Well, you can come back anytime you want, baby.
Mhm.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll be right here on the internet.
Thank you.
All right, Justin, you
Man,
have final closing words for us? You want to give some advice to the young people of the world that are watching this or will watch it later?
number one, if you're looking to play sports at a high level, study Olabisi Johnson and what he's done in his career and the way that he's gotten there. A seventh round pick who is in his second season in the NFL, and there's guys who've been first round picks who are no longer playing in the league at all. And so Olabisi is one of the guys who is, or BC,
Yeah.
is one of the top 1% in his profession, and he deserves to be respected for that, no matter how long his career will be. And it's going to be a long career as well. So please give this brother his respect that he deserves. And last but not least, do not stop the conversation. Don't just end the conversation here. Continue it, and you don't need to have the platform of a sports journalist or somebody in the NFL.
Not at all.
What you are doing at the dinner table is some of the biggest conversations you can have to keep everything going and keep the momentum going. So please do that. And man, enjoy it. Enjoy life, man. This is a beautiful life that we have. So enjoy it.
All right. Thanks, you guys. We're going to let you leave, and then we're going to talk about you behind your back. What? Bye. Oh, that was incredible. I am literally the best. Like, how do I get these guests? Just kidding. Janice, you brought in the NFL. I brought in the big time sports writer. I feel real proud of myself. Okay. So this kind of quality programming doesn't come out of nowhere, you guys. It comes out of love in our hearts. And as you can see, there's no lighting in my room and it is now dark. So we are going we're gonna just wrap it up, and I want people to know that Off Color is a Tan Tigress production, hosted by me, Rebecca Henderson, and produced and edited by Janice Motzko. If you're interested in following us on the social medias, we have a Facebook page, Off Color Podcast. We got a spicy little Twitter, Off Color Pod, and my favorite, our Patreon, the Tan Tigers Patreon, with memberships as low as $1. So, wait, is that it? Did I wrap it up good, Janice? Did I do it?
You did so good. Normally that takes us like 5 takes.
I'm so proud of myself. I feel like I learned something.
Mm-hmm.
What's the one? Let's see. Wide receiver, I learned. I still don't know what that does, though, but it's fine. Okay. And the other one was, chassis. Chassa. That was something I learned.
Chassa, yeah.
Yeah. So you can always learn something new on the Off Color
Absolutely.
Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. We will, for those of you that are still on, we'll just record it. We'll take the live. We'll put it up on the podcast. So if you missed it, you can always watch a replay of this or listen to it wherever you get your podcasts.
Bye, everybody. End.
Did you end?
End.